Welcome everyone to this February 1st meeting. Snowy, although the snow seems to have stopped for now. So, next slide. RASC Halifax Centre respectfully acknowledges that we live and observe on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Okay, and RASC believes in and practices inclusivity and diversity. The Halifax Centre welcomes all with an interest in astronomy without prejudice. As Helen Sawyer-Sogg said, the stars belong to everyone. Next one, please. So this is the schedule for today's meeting. We'll do a photo montage, and just to remind everyone that Judy still has 3 calendars and Explore the Universe guides for sale. The calendars are $25. Explore the Universe is $20, and that can be they can be paid for here by cash or check, or by e-transfer to the treasurer. Now, unfortunately, the weather resulted in a change in speakers, so Dave Turner couldn't make it. So Dave Chapman is going to give us a talk on celestial birds, their lore and observing. We'll then have a social break, followed by Food for the Soul by Paul Heath, News from the Board by Judy Black, and we'll end up with What's Up in February. Next one, please. So we'll go to the photo montage. So January was not an awful lot better than December for clear nights for imaging, but nevertheless, a few of the center members braved the cold weather and got some pictures. So this is from Jerry Black, and it's an image of Mars, Pollux, and Castor in a line on January 17th. And it shows up much better on a laptop screen, but there's Mars. And
it looks better when you're standing further.
Does it? Okay, yeah. Yeah, from here I can't make out which ones are Pollux and Castor, but nice picture. Next one, please. And Jerry was at SCO and shot this image of the Orion Nebula and the Running Man Nebula with his new mount. May be responsible for some of the weather. Yeah, it's in there. It shows up better on a laptop screen. The legs are there, I think. Next one. And again, from Jerry Black, the Rosette Nebula, found in Monoceros, and Jerry was trying a different palette for this one. I think it worked out quite nicely. Next one. Michael Bushat has been observing Mars from his apartment window and sketching. This is a sketching made on January 3rd, and he had a fair bit of success in picking out several prominent features and the North Polar ice cap. Next. Mike shot this image on January 22nd of the waning crescent moon. Again, from his apartment, and sunspots on January 22nd. So he did a sun and moon imaging session on that date. Dave Chapman sketched Jupiter and 4 of the Galilean moons while testing out a friend's Astromaster 130 EQ. He was able to see the 2 major cloud bands. Next. And Jason Dane got this nice shot of Thor's helmet in Canis Major. Very, very high detail. And the next one, please. And Jason has been taking a number of photos of Aurora. He's currently in Sweden, and this is one that he took a couple weeks ago. Jeff Donaldson Took this shot of the Rosette Nebula, so a popular target it seems. Next. And Tim Doucette contributes this image of the Flaming Star Nebula in Auriga. Again, lots of nice detail and color. Next one. Lisa Ann Fanning. She was lucky. We were clouded out for the lunar occultation of Mars, but Lisa Ann was able to get this sequence of shots showing Mars getting closer and closer to the moon and then disappearing. And I believe this sequence was featured on Earth Sky. So congratulations, Lisa. I got out for a few nights and was able to take some photos of planets. So this is a conjunction of Venus and Venus and Saturn on January 17th. Next, please. And Mars at opposition on the 17th. Scene was not too bad. Got a bit of detail. Next one, please. And Jupiter on the 27th. Scene was not very good, but still was able to resolve the Great Red Spot. Next one, please. And I did do a little bit of deep sky imaging, and this is the Owl Nebula, which I imaged over 3 nights last week. Next, Peter Hurley, testing out his Sea Star late afternoon and capturing the lunar V and lunar X. So the V is there, and the X is there. Next, please. And Pat Kelly got this image of a sun pillar. I think it was last week. Pretty impressive. Very colorful. Next one, please. Blair McDonald also imaged the Rosette Nebula. So I told you it was a popular target. Next, please.
Time of night.
Yeah. Well, if it's not behind trees, which is what it is for me. So next, please. David McMullen. This was I think the first image of January. So he was able to capture Northern Lights from Port Williams at about I think he said 1 in the morning. David is also now the proud owner of a Dwarf 3 smart telescope, and he's been testing it out. So this is the Horsehead and Flame Nebula in Orion. Next. Andromeda Galaxy. And I don't think the Horse and the Flame he processed, but this shot, the Andromeda, is straight off the Dwarf 3 with no post-processing. And next one, please. And Orion Nebula. Again, no post-processing, right off the Dwarf. So the stars are pretty good. Nice shape on that. Okay. And lastly, we have Gary Weber, waxing crescent moon, and down here, Saturn, taken on January the 4th. And I believe that's all.
Okay. I think everyone in this room pretty much knows our guest speaker. And those of you that don't, I'll give you a brief explanation as to who this dear soul is. Dave has certainly been a lifelong observer, becoming interested at about the age of 10. So he's been looking up for a very long time. He has been awarded by our society on several fronts as well. He's received the Simon Newcomb Award, the Service Award back in 2015. And when I was president in 2020, I had the great honor of announcing that Dave was also now a fellow of the RASC. So he has some distinction. He's served a couple of terms here at our center as president. He's served as our director, and he certainly has served and is currently serving as auditor for our center. He's also been involved with Nova East for many years in various capacities on the committee, presenting talks such as the one he's doing today, and also doing workshops at that one. And this is a presentation that Dave did do this past August at Nova East when we were at Blomidon. But we felt it was intriguing enough and interesting enough that we wanted the membership at large to have access to his talk. So he is invited today to do just that. So without further ado, I give you Dave Chapman to present Celestial Birds, Their Lore and Wonder.
Everything good, audio-wise? Good? How do we advance? Do I tell you what I... Okay. Is there some kind of hand signal I can get? Okay, great. Well, thank you for inviting me. For those that are seeing this for the second time, I apologize. But when I woke up this morning, I didn't have anything to do. And then I got a phone call at 10, would you come in and step in for speaker? And I gulp. And I said, yeah, because, you know, I gave the talk pretty recently and it's pretty fresh in my mind. So here I am to give this talk. And I'm glad to give it because there was a small but very select audience in August. It was a terrible weather. I went up there. That's maybe about 15 or 20 of us. But today it's going out. I think more people are going to be able to see it. Plus, I guess it'll be on the video version. So I'm happy that this talk will get out into the world. I worked on it. I thought about it for quite a while and then worked on it for a bit. And I hope you'll enjoy it. It's a pretty light talk. It's not really heavy. The inspiration was that we were going to do this Stars and Birds Nova East theme, and we were going to do it 2 years in a row. The first time it got canceled, and then the second time we just said, well, let's use that theme again. And I said, well, I could do a talk on the birds that are in the sky, you know, the celestial birds. That's where the idea came from, and so here we go. By the way, if you want to find out more about my projects, you go to my link tree down there, and you'll find out all the different things I do. So this talk is in two parts. The first part is a bit longer than the second part. So the first part only deals with the official constellations of the International Astronomical Union. Now there's 88 official constellations. They were codified back in the middle of the 20th century. They are all based on sort of Babylonian, Grecian, Roman kind of lore, and the myths that are involved in that lore. Those constellations got expanded when Europeans explored the southern hemisphere and added a bunch of relatively modern ones. Out of those 88, there are 9 celestial birds, plus one honorable mention. And it's the honorable mention, which I think is the kind of the cool thing about this talk. You won't miss it, I'll let you know. But I don't think it's right for me to get up and talk about constellations in the sky without acknowledging that around the world, there are many cultures who look up at the same stars. They don't always see the same patterns, and so they create their own patterns, their own constellations, their own myths. Everyone around the world seems to project their myths and stories onto the stars because, in a sense, back then, the sky was their big screen TV, right? They didn't have TV, they didn't have computers, internet, they just had the sky. And so they used the sky to play out the stories that they told from generation to generation. I can't possibly cover all of the bird-related constellations and all of those cultures. But as you recall, I mean, last month we had Charles Ennis talk about the World Asterism Project. So if you're interested in other cultures and star stories that involve birds or anything, go there. There's not enough time to cover everything. But I will touch on a couple of things, well, maybe three. But what is Moon and the Seven Bird Hunters? Because that's a local story of the Indigenous people here. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I found out about some Cree constellations, because that material is fairly easy to access. And I'm going to talk about Maori from the Southern Hemisphere, a Maori bird constellation, which I discovered while I was doing research for this talk. So the part one. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess there's 8 IUA constellations plus the honorable mention. So I'm going from high declination to low declination, because for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, they're the ones that are at high declination are the most visible. So the first one is Cygnus the Swan, plus 45 degrees. The second one is Lyra, plus 35 degrees. Everybody says, wait a minute, Lyra's a harp, it's not a bird. However, the reason it gets an honorable mention is because in some stories involving Lyra, there is a bird involved. Okay, so that's why there's an honorable mention there. Then we have Aquila the eagle, which is basically on the equator, celestial equator. Not many people know that. So interestingly enough, those 3 constellations are very prominent constellations in the summer sky. And this talk was very much directed towards summer observing. So we're exactly in the wrong month now, but you can get ready. The other couple that are easy for us to see here are Corvus the crow and Columba the dove. Well, they're not really easy to see because they're at minus 20 and minus 35. We'll get to that. The remaining ones are basically invisible from here, and they're all in the southern sky. The crane, the phoenix, the toucan, the peacock, and the bird of paradise. They're all in the southern hemisphere. They're all not that big, and they were all added in, when the Europeans moved were exploring the southern hemisphere. So that's the kind of the roadmap. So one of the things I'm going to try to do in this talk is not only talk about the constellations, but I was trying to get people to observe the things in the constellations. So here's our first list of things. All of these objects here are in the Explore the Universe observing program, which is like the intro, the basic observing program for the RASC. You don't have to be a member of the RASC to get that program and get a pin and a certificate. It's open to everybody. But here are some Explore the Universe objects. So I think I got them all. All the ones here are the bird-related ones in Explore the Universe. So in Cygnus, the Cygnus and its principal star Deneb are objects that you can check off in your observing program. And Albireo, which is Beta Cygni, is a beautiful double star which you can observe in binoculars, and you can observe that to explore the universe. Omicron 1 Cygni is a really interesting triple star in Cygnus, and Judy and I have a history over this, which I won't go into, but every time I bring it up, I always think of Judy, because anyhow, we had fun finding that one. Well, looking back, I got a little frustrated. I mean, what's the matter? You can't see it. Anyway, finally she saw it. Anyway, 16 Cygni is another double star. All of these are binocular objects or naked eye objects, so easy to do, right? Too bad it's not summer. And in Lyra, we've got Lyra and its principal star Vega. constellation star. There's the Epsilon 1 and Epsilon 2 Lyra, which is a multiple star. In binoculars, you can see the double. You need a sort of medium power telescope to split the double to get 4 stars. And you have to have good seeing, but that's kind of a neat object to zoom in on. And then there's Zeta 1 and Zeta 2 Lyra, another double star, and Delta 1 and Delta 2 Lyra, another double star, all in Vega. Oh, sorry, all in Lyra. And in Aquila, all we have is the constellation and the star. There aren't any, well, not in Explore the Universe. I'm not even sure there's any object in any of the RASC observing lists in Aquila. I might be wrong. Someone with that, eh? Of course you'd say that. He's the dark nebula guy. I asked him once, how come the dark nebula don't have magnitudes? Anyway, it took him a while. Next one, please. Okay, so Summer Triangle. Again, the top 3 bird stars are bird constellations are Cygnus, Altair, and Lyra, and their stars are Deneb, Altair, and Vega. D for Deneb, Altair, A for Altair, VE for Vega, spells Dave. So this is also known hereabouts as the Dave asterism. Now you might ask, why does Vega get 2? It's because of the double-double, right? So it gets two letters. Okay, I had to correct. Charles had he said he's putting it into the and I had to correct him. I said it's D-A-V-E. It's not D-A-V. It's D-A-V-E because of anyway. He got it. So, and of course that makes those 3 stars of the Summer Triangle or the Dave asterism. It's always a lot of fun to point those out. Interestingly enough, we call it the Summer Triangle, but in the fall, because it's so high up in the sky, in the fall, as the fall progresses, it gets darker earlier. And so in the summer, you have to wait up till 10 o'clock at night to see the Summer Triangle. But then you get into September and then you can see it at 9 o'clock, and then in October, 8 o'clock. And you can see the so-called Summer Triangle quite late into the fall because of the fact that it gets darker in the fall. Quite interesting. Next, please. Okay, let's get into some of the details here. I took these pictures from a book. It's the book of constellations that I have is by Ruckel, the same guy that did the moon book, but he also put out a nice constellation book, and I grabbed these images from his book. So Cygnus, the swan, if you look into the mythology of Cygnus, there are actually 2 different stories about Cygnus. One of them is about, I think they're brothers, Cygnus and Python. And right now, I can't recall how that story goes, but you might want to look that one up. But the more common one is where Cygnus represents Zeus, who disguised himself as a swan, came down to Earth and had his way, let's say, with a mortal woman. Now this little story gets played out multiple times in Greek mythology, so it's a pretty common thing that Zeus would do. Normally in classical art, this is often depicted as Leda and the Swan is the name of, you can see all the people have painted this this story. Anyhow, that's a PG-13 story, okay? The other ones, I think, is a little more family friendly. So we've already mentioned Deneb, which is Alpha Cygnus in ETU, Alberio, Beta Cygnus in ETU, colored double star. A real crowd pleaser at star parties in the summer because of the contrasting colors in the stars. Omicron 1 Sigma, I've mentioned already, triple star. Where is that? That's up here. So here's the Northern Cross here. Omicron 1 is this. I think some people get mixed up. They think that Omicron 1 and Omicron 2 are the star in the ETU, but it's not. Omicron 1 itself is a triple star. So you have to be careful with that. Make sure you get it right. Moving on, Messier 39, which is up here, is in the Messier list in the RASC Messier certificate. And there are some finest NGC objects. The North American Nebula, NGC 7000, the Veil Nebula. You see lots of photographs of these. If you're trying to do these optically, they're a bit of a challenge to see. You need to have a really dark sky, and you need to have a big aperture telescope to really to see them. I lie. You can see the North American Nebula in binoculars because it's pretty big, but you do have to have a dark sky. If you're in any kind of light pollution, forget it. You won't be able to see it. Because the eye itself is not very sensitive to the red light. The cameras we have today pick that up, and people give you these wonderful pictures with red, but our eyes are not that sensitive in the red. Some people seem to have more sensitivity than others. Blair McDonald, are you out there? No, he would look up and go, "Oh, I see it." I'm struggling. And there's something called the blinking planetary, which I think it has the impression that it's changing magnitude. I don't know if it's real or not. I don't think it's real. I think it's just some kind of optical thing. So that's, I want to point out one thing. There's a star down here called Gienah, okay? And that means wing. That's the wing of Cygnus. So note that for later on, because that's going to come up again. So here's some pictures courtesy of David Hoskin of Alberial. Omicron 1 Cygni. So here's the little hockey stick, I think that's Omicron 1, or maybe, I don't know. Not sure which are which, but there's a little hockey stick when you get them in binoculars. And Alberio, that's a pretty good picture. You have to be careful not to overexpose it, but you can see the color here in David's picture. This isn't the greatest impression on this screen, but you can see the bluish and the sort of the golden color there, especially in the diffraction spikes. The stars themselves may be a little bit oversaturated in this particular picture, but anyhow, lovely colors. Now, Vulpecula, the fox. I know, it's not a bird. I know it's not a bird. However, it isn't a bird. However, I'm including it for two reasons. One, it's really close to Cygnus, and there's a really cool thing to look at in it. But also, the fox has a goose in its mouth. Alpha Vulpeculi is called Anser, which is goose. So another honorable mention. It's like a bird, So it's a fox. Not very, as a constellation, not very spectacular, but it has a really cool open cluster here called the coat hanger, which you can find when you go to Cygnus. The way I tell people to find it is to find Altair and find Alberio and look about a third of the way along in your binoculars, and you can pick that out. That is in the ETU, so that's another nice object to find. And then another one, the Dumbbell Nebula is here. That one's a bit tricky to find. I usually find Sagitta, which is the arrow, or Sagitta. Anybody have any ideas on that? Sagitta. So here's an arrow. You go to the head of the arrow and kind of go north, and you can find the dumbbell between that star and that star.
Is the goose a single star?
Some
First Nations, a single star represents a character or not.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't remember seeing anything about it being a double star. So I think it's just a single star.
Just one star to represent the goose, it's not two or three.
Well, it's the goose that's in the fox's mouth. Okay, so the constellation is the fox, and the fox has got a goose in its mouth, so he gets one star. He's not the main attraction here. I'm sure there's a story about that. Anyhow, see next. Did you go and I didn't notice? Okay. Aquila the eagle. Interesting. Eagles seem to play the role in Greek mythology. They're like, in Greek mythology, they're like the couriers, like, UPS, or what are the other ones? Anyway, they're like the couriers. The gods use them to carry things around because they're fast and they can grab things. So they're always sending eagles off to get things or to bring things back, whatever. So anyway, Aquila was a servant to the gods, and there was this young boy named Ganymede, and he was dispatched, guess who, by Zeus, to abduct Ganymede and bring him back to Mount Olympus, where he ended up being their servant. I won't go into that anymore, but you will find on old star charts, you will find depictions of Ganymede in the pictorial thing. You'll see the eagle, and then you might see, sometimes it's Antonius, the name Antonius. It's very complicated, but you'll see sometimes in the old star charts, you'll see a young boy, right? So Altair, we've already mentioned Alpha Aquila. It's in ETU, as is the constellation itself. And then we have another Bernard E. Is a well-known dark nebula. It's in an observing list in the handbook, but it's not in an observing certificate, as far as I know. So maybe that's something we can work on, eh? Certificate.
Deep sky challenge objects in the too.
Okay, yeah. I didn't go there. Yeah, that's the hardest one ever, right? You're doing them now, right? How close are you to being finished?
Well, historically, I had about 30 of the 38 done, but I've been redoing the entire list of the new scopes. So
Wow.
about a third of the way through.
Wow, impressive.
He's talking about what?
The Deep Sky Challenge.
Deep Sky Challenge observing certificate. It's
Wanted to make sure that.
oh, okay. Oh, right, because they can't hear him. I have to remember that. So yeah, it's in the Dark Nebula in the handbook, and there's nothing to stop you from observing those things in the list. Just because there's no certificate, the list is published and it's a good list to try. But you have to have a dark sky because you're looking for something that's dark in a dark sky, and you have to be able to see the stars that make it the contrast, that make it dark. So it's very tricky. I just noticed that there is a couple of NGC objects in there, but they're not in the finest. So there's not a whole lot going on in Aquila. I do have a story about this. I think it was Jeff Donaldson at SCO, and he was like, I'm getting tired of looking at all the same objects, blah blah blah. What you got any ideas? I said, well, why don't you look at Bernard Z? And he said, well, it's not in my database or whatever. And I said, well, I'll read out the coordinates. So I read out the RA and the deck, and he zoomed his telescope over, and he took a single frame, and there it was, bang, E, right in the middle of the frame. So he got it. So it's a good reason to have your handbook on you, because stuff like that isn't in all the databases on telescopes. Go to telescopes. Okay, next. Okay, here's the really cool one in my estimation. Lyra the harp. So the harp was created by the god Hermes. Now, I'm always giving like the really bare bones part of the story. I mean, there's a lot more detail than what I'm going to say, because there's no time to tell all the stories. So if you're interested, you can go read up on it. You may recognize Orpheus. He was the guy who went to Hades to get his girlfriend back. And it didn't turn out well, let's say. But he had his harp. So what happened was, I don't know why, but Hermes decided to gift it to Orpheus, who is a mortal. He's not a god. Hermes was a god, created the harp and gifted it to Orpheus. The courier, as I mentioned before, was a vulture or an eagle. I'm not sure. But so he gave the eagle the harp and said, take this to Orpheus, okay? Now, the main star in Lyra is Vega, which is Alpha Lyra. And if you look up what that means, you will actually find different definitions, but it refers to a bird, a swooping vulture or a falling eagle, something like that. There's so many different stories, but it has nothing to do with the harp other than the fact that the eagle or vulture was the courier. And the other interesting thing about Vega is back when they were setting up the magnitude scale, they decided that, okay, Vega is going to be magnitude 0.0. Done. And then everything went from there, okay? It's not the case anymore. They have a different, more like physicsy definition of magnitude, but Vega, I think, is maybe a hundredth of a magnitude off zero, but it is the old standard. So if you want to know what a magnitude 0 star is, look at Vega. So there's another star in Lyra called Sheliak down here, Beta. What's that mean? Well, it means harp. So inside Lyra, the main star is named after a bird, and the second brightest star is actually the harp, named after the harp. Gets pretty interesting, eh? So we've already mentioned that there's many double stars in Lyra. Epsilon Lyra, Zeta Lyra, Delta Lyra. There's a couple of Messier objects, the Ring Nebula, and a globular cluster, M56, which I think, if I recall, M56 is the globular cluster that looks least like a globular cluster. It's very irregular. Am I right about that? Yeah, you look at it and you say, what? This is a globular cluster? Because they're supposed to be round, but it's a bit off. So, okay, so here's another story. This goes to our Quinn Smith, our member in England. Is Quinn still a member, actually? I'm not sure. Is he still signed up? So Quinn, when he was doing the Sky Tour, he said, well, what we want to do with this constellation Lyra, he said, we've got an idea. He said, we're going to go to Tim Hortons and offer to change the name of the constellation to Tim Horton because it has a donut and a double-double, okay? And he said we could get all kinds of money. We'll get a corporate sponsorship, and we'll change the name to Tim Horton. Anyhow, I didn't catch on for obvious reasons. So you might be thinking, Chapman's making this up about the vulture, the eagle in Lyra. He's making it up. But I have a bunch of reproductions of old star charts at home. I've got a kind of a collection. They're not real. They're like pictures. And all of these star charts, they go back, we feel that might be of Eastern origin. So the oldest one I have a copy of is Appianus 1540, which goes back a long way. Then there was a guy, Hood, Bayer, Blow, Celerius, Allard, Van Kalen, then Reiner, Oten, Barlow, and Bode, 1801. All of these celestial charts, which are kind of like this, like fancy pictures and colors, and they all depict a vulture or an eagle associated with Lyra, like this. See here? There. That's the bird, and he's carrying the harp. So this is just one example. All of these other ones have that. This is a big revelation to me. Interestingly enough, since 1801, I could not find a single star chart of any kind which made any reference to a bird or a vulture or an eagle. And in no astronomy book that I've seen, does anybody mention it? It's sort of dropped, it's just kind of dropped out of the lore somehow. And I think it's an interesting story. I think there's more to it. And I think it would make an interesting article all on its own, just why all that happened. Not many people know that, of this connection. So we'll move on. Oh, wait a minute. Remember Aquila? He's called Antonius in this Ganymede, right? There he is with his little bow and arrow. And Aquila is coming down to grab him. I didn't make that up either. Okay, now Corvus the crow. Uh, another kind of like the eagle, like a second level, a second rank courier, the crow. So Zeus told Zeus told the crow, go, I need some water, go get some water from the river or whatever. So he goes off and he takes his time, doesn't get back very soon. He makes up this big story about battling a water snake, which is Hydra, which is underneath here, and comes back and lies. He lies to Zeus about what happened. Zeus gets angry and he exacts revenge on the crow. Now, we know crows as black, and they have a very screeching, awful call. Well, before that, the crow was white and had a beautiful call. Zeus made him black and took away his nice call and made him into a caw song. So that's Corvus the crow. There are, there's a finest NGC there, the antenna galaxies. I think those are the interacting galaxies, and then there's strings of stars coming out. Okay, so that's in the finest NGC. Algorab is one in the relatively new double star program. So there's a few things there to observe. This is a spring constellation. So Corvus is this one over here. This is Crater, which is the cup that he was supposed to bring the water back. And the other thing I want to mention, struggling to find things to say about Corvus. The red dwarf star LHS 2520, which is real, near Gienah, has planet Krypton home to Superman in pop culture. Okay, so that's a real red dwarf star. Gienah, did you notice that? This constellation also has a star named Gienah. And when the IIU was organizing things, they said, we can't have two stars with the same name. We can't have two stars named Gienah. So now, technically, this star is named Gienah Corvi, whereas Gienah plane is in Cygnus, okay? Aren't you glad you came? Next, please. Columba the Dove. Now, this is the most difficult one. Columba the Dove is a winter constellation. You could maybe go out and see it tonight, but it is pretty far down south. It is at, between -30 and -40. So it's like, you'd have to have a good southern horizon, because not only is it below Orion, but it's below Canis Major and Lepus. So Puppis and Pictor and so on are considered southern constellations. This one's on a little bit on the edge, but it is a dove. It's a bird constellation, and it was in Johann Bode put it in Uranometria. There are no observing targets there for obvious reason, because it's so hard to see it. There is a black hole and an exoplanet, but they're not observing targets. So I think there's some view that Columba is the dove that was, it might be named after the dove that was released by Noah after the flood to go out and see if there was any land, but I'm not sure about that. I mean, Columba is the Latin word for dove, right? Okay, now the southern birds. How are we doing for time? Are we okay? Okay, good. Because after this, we'll do part 2. So the southern birds, I'll go very quickly. I'm not going to go through them in great detail because we can't really view them from here. So there's no point in going through them in detail. So I've got this, again, from Ruckel's book. Here's the polar constellations in the south. And you can see that Apus, Pavo, Tucana, Goose, and Phoenix are all kind of bunched together there in the southern sky. So with increasing difficulty of viewing them. Phoenix is like the most northerly one, I guess. It's -50, right next to Achernar, which is at the end of the river. Eridanus. Eridanus is this long constellation, starts up near Orion, goes down below the horizon, and ends up at Achernar, which means, can anyone guess? The end of the river. Okay. So when I go to Cuba, I often look for that star. I always look cool, like look for the end of the river. So there's not much more to say. Well, maybe there might be one more slide on these. Here's I think they're all in here. Here's a pictorial representation. This might be mirror reverse, because for some reason people used to do that. They would make mirror images, like as if you were not looking out, but looking down. I don't know. Anyhow, so Pavo is a peacock. Goose, what was goose? Crane. A toucan is a toucan. Phoenix is the one that rises from the ashes, right? It consumes in a flame, and then a new bird comes from the ashes. Did I get them all? Yeah, they're all there, I guess. Okay. Now I'm going to do part 2. So I'm going to be talking about the Moon sky story of the Mi'kmaq, a couple of Cree. So in Cree, Niska is a goose, and it's Cygnus. You can kind of see that, right? They don't see a swan, they see a goose. Makes sense. There's a couple of other constellations, the summer thunderbird and the winter thunderbird. To be honest, I have never really figured out how to draw those from the stars, but according to Wilfred Buck, there are these summer and winter thunderbirds. And then the last one we're going to talk about is Keruru of the Maori. So Wilfred Buck has a few books and videos online. He got the Keelak Award in 2023 from the RASC in Casca. So that if you want to learn more about the Cree constellations, look for him. And then there's the World Asterism Project, which you could lose yourself for hours in that. So here's, this is the one from here, Moon and the 7 Bird Hunters. I'm not going to tell the whole story for a couple of reasons, but the main reason now is that it takes 15, 20 minutes to tell, and we don't have that kind of time. But it's online. If you want to go online, you can see it being read out and illustrated. And I happen to have one extra copy of the actual book, which is in Mi'kmaq and English. So if anyone wants my second last copy, because I kept one for myself, I'll sell you that for 10. While we're at it, I did bring in some of the Mi'kmaq Moons books that Kathy and I did, if anyone's interested in those. These ones aren't signed, unfortunately. I'll sign it for me, but I haven't gotten them through Kathy. They're just books. You want to hold out for a signed one, maybe we can figure that out. So the story of Moon and the 7 Bird Hunters takes place involving the stars of Ursa Major and Bootes in the Western tradition. And Corona Borealis is kind of a side character. So if we just go through the characters, I think if we click here, they'll come up one by one. That's Moon's back. That's the bear. So the bowl of the dipper is Moon, or Moon's back. Next one is the robin. The robin is so the bird hunters are chasing the bear because they don't like the bear in the woods, and they're hunting the bear. And robin is the one that's on the chase. The second one is chickadee, which is Mizar, Gigi Gaze, and in the story, chickadee's holding a birch bark pot, which is the other. It's Alcor, and he's got a birch bark pot that they're going to cook the bear meat in after the hunt. If you want to know how you can cook something in a birch bark pot, ask me after. I won't explain it now. Next one is the Grey Jay. Don't ask me to say that one. just allocate. Then we jump over to Buute, Sagina's passenger pigeon place. They're extinct now. They've been hunted almost the world round. There's no passenger pigeons anymore because they're easy to hunt and good tasting. So people would just kill them. Then there's the blue jay, TTS, and then two owls. Cuckooquays, the barred owl. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you? No, that one. Cuckooquays, barred owl. And the saw-whet owl. Goopquedge. So those are the main characters of the story. And what's Corona Borealis? Oh, go back. Corona Borealis is the den of the bear. That's where the den spends the winter, okay? It does have a name. I don't have it on this slide, but there is a name for it. Okay, so move on. And here's a picture that I took at, guess where? Our favorite spot in Kedemkujik with the pine tree. And you can see, you know, there's all the stars. A live picture that I took with all those stars. One of the things, oh, go back, please, sorry. One of the things that I did when I was out there one night was I sat out after sunset and the blacks were with us. And I sat out there in my chair and after sunset and I made a note of when I could see each star coming out, how long it took between sunset and for the stars to come out. And I was trying to get those timings because the way this works in the morning, they do the opposite. They fade away. And there's something in the story about that the fire watchers, they tell the story in the morning, not at night. And they're staying up all night and watching the fire, and they tell the story in the morning. And then in some references, it says like 2 hours before dawn. And I'm like, well, how do you know when that is? So I just kind of worked it back. And it turns out that 2 hours before, let me think now, is it first light of dawn or 2 hours before actual sunrise? It might be 2 hours before the first light of dawn, as we just mentioned it. That's when the stars start to disappear. Okay, so that's the time of the morning. Like that's the latest you could tell this story because all the stars are visible. Okay, now we can move on. Oh yeah, if you want the full story, you can go to our Mi'kmaq Moons page. There's also a link tree. Okay, here's the last one, Karuru wood pigeon. So Karuru is a New Zealand wood pigeon, and it uses the southernmost stars of our, I was going to say the bottom ones, but down there is the upper ones. I'm saying the southern ones. And so south is up here. So the belt of Orion is the perch on which the wood pigeon is sitting. And I guess the sword of Orion or whatever is the snare, and Rigel is the berry, which is the bait for the wood pigeon. So the thing is, the Maori would hunt these birds by setting a snare and having some berries to attract the birds, and then they'd have them for supper. Puanga. What is Puanga? Oh, that's the name of Rigel, is Puanga. And the rising of Rigel, for some Maori, the rising of Rigel in the morning is the start of the Maori New Year. And when I say the rising, it's called the heliacal rising. So it's night, you can't see anything. Rigel rises and you can see it for a little bit, and then it disappears because the sun comes up. And that's called the heliacal rising, and that is the start of their new year. A few days before that, Rigel would be rising too late. A few days after that, it would be in the sky for a long time. So it's that instant, that one day when you can see Rigel just before the sun rises. That's the start of the new year. But go back, the Maori also, some Maori use the rising of the Pleiades, which they called Batariki. they use Matariki as the start of the new year. But if you actually go to like set yourself up in New Zealand and see what's going on, then basically Rigel and the Pleiades are rising at about the same time. So some groups use one and some groups use the other. Okay, so I thought that was kind of a cool story about the wood pigeon. And I think we're at the end now, ready for the question and answer time. My picture. North American Nebula.
Chapman, where?
Well, KG. Probably at Site 15. Kujic. It's just a camera with an 85mm lens on, I guess it was a tracker. I don't know how long I said. 30 seconds times 10. Yeah, I was tracking. Anyhow, any questions or observations or comments?
Anything from Zoomland, Bob?
Early on, the Fannings said they were very happy to have the opportunity to see this invitation finally.
Yes, well, I saw earlier that Lisa noted that it was taking place. So thank you, Lisa, for showing up, and I hope you enjoyed it.
So just as an observation at the Dark Sky Weekend in Kenny last year, they did a presentation on Moon.
Yes.
With they had props and
Yes.
very lengthy,
Yeah.
quite graphic in the dark because they had these glow in the dark figures and they
Yeah.
involved children. It was quite interesting, very visually impressive, and quite a wonderful experience.
Okay. So Gary was talking about the presentation by the interpreters at KG last year, which was apparently a very theatrical and impressive little play acting. I'm sorry I missed it. That was the first of the Dark Sky Weekend events ever that I have missed, and I'm sorry I did. Anyway, I'm glad to see that the people down there are embracing the story and bringing it back to life. That sounds like maybe they'll do it again, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
It was really well done. They had very good props.
Right.
And it involved participation by children who had been up on the
Yeah.
circle. So it was just really well done. And
Yeah.
worth seeing probably more than once in my life.
So Gary's saying that, I guess I'm interpreting your words, but because they've invested a lot in the props and so on, it's very likely, and it was very successful, that it's probably going to be done again, especially where it involves children who come to the Sky Circle for an evening.
Apparently with these new mics, we can hear the audience.
Is that so? Well, wow. It was presented in English and in Mi'kmaq. Wow. I'm not sure Ursula has been there for the last few years, but I don't know because I wasn't there.
Gentleman interpreter.
Dave, one of the slides that you showed had, I think, the Cree and the
Yes.
brackets in England.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know maybe that's possibly their name for themselves in that language. I'm sorry, I'd have to look that up. But well, yeah. I'm sorry, I can't recall what that word specifically means. But in my defense, I only knew I was giving this talk this morning. And I didn't have a chance to really review it. I'm winging it here, okay? So, yeah. So, I'll look it up, though, now that you mentioned it, if I remember, which is unlikely. Okay, well, okay, great.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for stepping in, and yes, I'm gonna hug you for stepping in. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Did you get some photos?
Okay, great. So it's 7 minutes after 2. We'll have a short break now. 15 minutes. Yep.
2:25.
2:25. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Next up is Paul Heath with Food for the Soul, and I'll let Paul explain why the poem doesn't match the talks today.
The poem I wrote was for the topic we were supposed to have, and we got bumped on the snow, so maybe I'll have to write one about birds for the next one and switch it over. Anyway, Gaia's scars. Gaia shivers, stung by Jove's angered toss. She shifts her cross to hide her wounds as skies fill with swift and angry swords. Gently she wraps herself in greens and flowing blues to hide her unjust scars from Jove. She rests and knits a new tapestry of brightened hues interwoven within her vibrant greens and blues. Her sunlit continents enrage Jove's dull, angered hues. Again he heaves inward the brightness to dispel. Gaia's rise with pain at Jove's greatest anger toss. Her crust pierced deep wrenches apart. Her vibrant tapestry to fire and flood succumb. In agony she twists and shakes, her tears a mask, her wounds to conceal. With growing anger, her crust she shifts anew, pulled and reshaped, high fangs skyward break. About herself she wraps glittering shawls. Their sun-bright blue-white glistening, a blinding flash to Jove's eyes did stab. Till calm, the great scars reduced she had found had been. Belts of fire and ice she kept, a warning to his tantrums toss. But anew she wrapped herself, with radiant colors and deep rich greens and blues. Jove still ill-tempered tossed to mar her cape, but Gaia, calmed, had grown. With water's gentle flow and wind's shifting sands, she hid Jove's angered blemishes. Then with slow and patient shakes, she shifts and sews her colorful tapestry anew. Gaia still gives at Jove's petulance. With rain and wind, she shakes her attire free to present in a slightly altered display, but crowned by glittering ice and wrapped by fiery rings, her vibrant colored robes a smile now to Gaia brings. The poem is based on meteor impacts on the Earth, and I tried to go through history. The first paragraph is actually from when Pangea broke up. So just the context to relate to the poem.
Okay, so next up is news from the board. Judy.
There we go. Yeah. So welcome to February and what's been transpired since we last met early in January. Jerry, please. A couple of things. We have a couple of new appointments. First and foremost, we have a brand new board member, David McMullen. So welcome, David. He attended our very first meeting this past Tuesday, actually. We still need one director. Keep in mind, as Dave Hoskin pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, that we have inclusivity and diversity. So anyone over the age of 19 and is a current member of the RASC can become one of our directors. So if you have an interest, do you need long-term experience at being a board member or observing? No, but if your work life or your personal life provides some insight that might help us, we'd certainly welcome you. So please give the president or the vice president an email. Their email addresses are on our website if you would like to join us. The other appointment, Jeff Donaldson, who is a member of our board, has agreed to be the chair of the communications committee, which is wonderful. We're going to have a review of how and where we advertise and let members and non-members alike know what we're doing. We still need a chair or a lead person for Nova East, so we're still looking for that, but that's in the months ahead. Chair? Brand new thing. We now have a business card that we're really excited to announce. Dave Hoskin has roughly 1,000 copies of these for people to use at outreach events. So you have to contact him if you would like any copies of it. And we have a huge debt of gratitude to Wayne Harasimovich. Wayne actually introduced this project back in late 2019, early 2020. But as you can appreciate with the pandemic and whatnot, this was one of the balls that got dropped in all of that hubbub. Picked up again by Wayne, and thanks to him, we now have this wonderful card. It's got a picture of the Monkey Nebula and the phrase that Dave Hoskin pointed at the beginning too, the stars belong to everyone. The back of the card provides our logo, our website, our YouTube and Facebook links, the QR code that you can use to access our website, and there's space there that when you use this card, you can print your name or write your name and phone number or any other information that that person wants on the card. So it's there. So we do have them now. So when we have outreach events, such as the upcoming one later this week, we now have them to utilize and keep people informed as to how to reach us. Oh, yes. I said later this week, there's the Atlantic Photo Supply on February 4th, which is Tuesday night, weather permitting. If not the 4th, it'll be the 5th, and if not the 5th, hopefully the 6th. But we're aiming for the 4th. It starts at 6:30. It's for public and member observing alike, family, young and old. Come and join us. If you are a member and you'd like to bring out your telescope and assist us, or binoculars and would like to assist us with this event, please do so. Just show up and we'll be love to have you. Okay. Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, Atlantic Photo Supply will also be providing hot chocolate, coffee, and Timbits. So if you're worried about the cold, you'll have a warm place to go if you get chilled. Observing Nights. Tony McGrath, who is our president and is also our school manager, did provide some the list of observing nights. They're now on our website. As the arrow shows, if you go to our website and click on observing, this is the page you'll see. And there is the list of all the observing nights for from now till the end of the year. There. You'll notice down here the August one. Keep in mind that all of these dates are on new moons, around new moons. But the August one, the new moon, just happens to be when Nova East is happening. So this one, in lieu of an observing night, we've provided the link for people to go to the Nova East site and hopefully join us there. Okay. And speaking of Nova East, we're back in Smiley's. We've got it confirmed. Just this past week, thanks to the efforts of Chris Young, who was in contact with Mark Meadows at the park. And the picture up top is actually the observing field and the camping field. You can see the tents along one side, the observing field. That's what it looked like. It is August 22 to August 24, so please join us. We haven't got all the information yet, obviously, because we don't have any plans in the works as yet. But that we do have the date confirmed and we have the site confirmed.
Have the building?
Yes. The campground was willing to empty it temporarily for us to use. So yes, we do have the building. And the picture that you see in the lower right of your screen, that's what the sky looks like at night. So that sky is down over there on the left-hand side of the other picture. So Gary, I've asked Gary Weber to come and join me to talk about Nova East because, as we said a few moments ago, we don't have any committee for this, but we need assistance from the membership, right?
Yes. I'm just gonna stand close to you.
Okay.
The microphone will work.
We'll just hug.
So,
So what's going to happen is we're hoping to have a discussion about what do people want? What would they like to see? What would they like to learn? And so we're going to have a discussion via Zoom about this. So we're going to plan later in February. It'll be after the 20th. I know that for certain because that's when Chris gets back.
okay.
But we're just hoping to learn from members well, you can probably say it better than I can.
Well, we would love to have people come forward with ideas that they would like to see. What kinds of features do they think that the Star Party that we host would feature for them, and what perhaps they think would draw more people or other people to the site. And further to that, it's not a bad idea if people have something that they think could be part of Nova East, that they would come forward and say, hey, listen, I just happen to have a advanced degree in cosmology from MIT in my back pocket, and I wouldn't mind giving a talk about that. That would be a handy thing to know. So we're just sort of looking to have an open sharing of ideas with people in terms of what they would like to see, what they may be able to offer, or maybe they know somebody else that has something to offer or can contribute a bit. We're not looking for volunteers to sit on a group. We're just want to have a discussion, float some ideas, and just generate some interest and some action with a small number of people around a computer or a coffee table.
So what will happen is later this month, I'll be sending an email through the announce list, so all the membership will get this. And if you're interested in joining the discussion, you'll have an email to contact, and we will send you the invitation to the Zoom session. Or maybe we'll just send out the Zoom session, period, and people can join in if they wish. Okay, so we'll try to get the ball rolling for Nova East, but we've had some challenges, I guess, in the past 3 years or 5 years between the pandemic, between floods at the campgrounds, all sorts of things. We just want to reboot it, if you will, and let's have an idea what you'd like.
And we had a perfect example this afternoon with Dave's presentation about what kinds of things could go over well at Nova East. So if you know somebody who can do that, or if you're willing to sort of come and talk about something, and it doesn't have to be really specific, but it would be very handy to have just a few more active people involved in a discussion about what we can present and where we can get some resources and how we can make it a little more interesting for all of us involved.
Yeah, we're trying to learn what will make you say, wow, I really want to go this year. Okay.
Kim Hay says that RASC Kingston and Belleville would like to compare notes with our FallNStars and Nova East. So presume they'll be on the Zoom.
Very good.
Good. Thanks, Kim. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, next up. Next one. Yeah. So having said about the dates of Nova East, please make sure your calendar is marked with our Nova East. And again, everyone is welcome, member or not. It's open to the public as well. August 22 to 25 during the new moon at Smiley's Provincial Park. At our Dark Sky weekend, which we have, be later in the year before maybe the next few months, before we know any of the details regarding Dark Sky weekend out at Kedge and Kujik National Park and Historic Site. But it is the weekend before Nova East, August 15 to 18. So details will be on our website, but they'll also be on the park website. So keep an eye out for those. Chair? The other thing we wanted to bring to members' attention is that the National RASC does offer awards to members who have served the society here and nationally. There are several awards. They all have different criteria. If you go onto the National RASC website at rasc.ca/RASC-awards, you'll be able to see the full list of the awards. And when you click on any one of them, it'll give you who can nominate, the criteria for it, and whatnot. What we'd like members to, I guess, to appreciate is look around ourselves, and are there other members who we feel might deserve to be recognized through receipt of one of these awards. The deadline for submission for the 2026 awards, keeping in mind the 25's deadline was this past December, is December 31st of this year. So you've got a lot of time to think about it as to who you think might and should receive one of these. And Jared, next please. So if you're thinking about somebody, and Dave, I'm going to pick on you because I've already mentioned you have the Fellow of the RASC, but if I wanted to say, oh, gee, you know, Dave really deserves the Fellow of the RASC, well, does he already have one? I don't know. You can go to our website in About Us, under the Society, the very bottom of the column is Fellow of the RASC. You click on that and you will see the list of our members who have received the Fellow of the RASC. And yes, Dave was one of the 5 of 23 across the country. So we have 20% of all the fellows across the country. But if you're looking at one of the other awards and say, well, does Dave have a service award? Well, Jerry, there you go. All the awards, all the our members that have received any one of those lists on that list of awards are on there. So you can find out who they are. And yes, he has received one. Okay. And next. So last but not least are what the meetings coming up. Our board meets next on February 25. If there is something you feel the board should address, please bring it to our attention through the contact list, through the president or myself as secretary. Our next public meeting is March 1st. Our speaker is Robin Fort from Calgary Centre. Robin happens to be a former president, former chair of the awards committee, and certainly is an active member at Calgary Centre and serves on the National Council currently. But he's going to be addressing the RASC awards, the ones that I was just listing, and perhaps a few others, and also those that are awarded in conjunction with CASCA. Also, we are going to be doing a fundraising launch, and that we'll give you all the details there as to how we're going to proceed in the coming months with respect to the Dave Lane Memorial St. Croix Observatory Property Endowment or Scope Fund. So we'll keep you apprised of that. And National Council next meets on February 9. And that's it, I believe. So any questions? Okay, thank you.
So before I get into what's up in February, Judy's already mentioned the Atlantic Photo Supply outreach event on the 4th. Young Naturalists Club has asked to have a star guide session for February 28th, rain date March 1st, out at York Redoubt. So I've agreed to go out there. Anyone else who wants to come out, bring their scope?
What date?
February 28th or March 1st if it's rainy. And I believe deadline for the next edition of Nova Notes submission is February 15th. 7. Okay. So, sun this month. So it is getting lighter earlier and darker a little later, but it's still a good good time of the year for observing and imaging. Lots of nice dark hours. Next. This is the sun today, and I've circled this particular sunspot, AR3976. It's one to watch. Yesterday, it unleashed a M6.7 solar flare with a coronal mass ejection, which will not hit us. So probably no northern lights as a result of it, but it'll be we may get a side swipe, but that's a pretty active sunspot. It's part of a much larger group of sunspots, and we may get some aurora if we have a clear night with relatively little moonlight over the next week. Next, please. So the moon this month is, I guess, the big news is that the planets feature in close proximity to the moon throughout the month. So tonight, the moon will be near Venus and Neptune, and if it clears, it's supposed to clear by 6. So just after sunset, worth going out and looking at the crescent moon near Venus. First quarter of the snow blinding moon is February 3rd. On the 5th, the moon will be near the Pleiades. On the 6th, it'll be near Jupiter. On the 9th, it'll be near Mars. And on the 10th, near the Beehive cluster. So fairly short space of time, the moon's going to be near a number of planets. Full moon is February 12th. The last quarter is the 20th. On the 23rd, anyone interested in lunar features, Mare Orientale will be visible, but you need to get up early, 6 a.m. in the morning. But the libration of the moon is such that there should be a decent view of that particular feature. The new moon, the maple sugar moon, is February 27th. And then on the 28th, the moon will be near Mercury and Saturn. Next, please. So this is what you'll see tonight through 7x50 binoculars. So a nice crescent moon, Venus, and if you look closely, you'll see Neptune hiding just down below the moon. And on the 5th, always a nice view of the Seven Sisters and just past the first quarter moon. Next. On the 8th, the moon, nearly full moon, and Mars. And on the 16th, again, the nearly big moon and Beehive cluster. As always, around the time of the first quarter is a good time to look at various lunar features involved in Explore the Universe, as well as Explore the Moon programs from RASC. So that would be between February 1st and 5th. Everything in this area is going to be nicely shadowed. So lots of contrast to those features. Next, please. This is, remember I said on the 23rd, look for Mare Orientale. So just a little bit of write-up here about it. Need a lot of near maximum Western libration for this particular feature to be visible. I took this shot a few years ago, and it's not the greatest, but you can see just the edge of Mare Orientale and surrounding Lacus Veris and Lacus Autumni, and you see here where that was. So maybe the 23rd is going to be even a bit better. Next, please. So the planets. After the middle of February, Mercury will re-emerge, and it'll be visible low in the west after sunset, near Saturn on the 25th, and near a young crescent moon on the 28th. Venus is brilliant in the night sky after sunset, as I said, close to the waxing crescent tonight. Mars is still in Gemini. It's getting a little dimmer than it was at opposition, so it's starting to move away from us. But close to the moon on the 9th of February. Jupiter's prominent in Taurus after sunset. You look almost straight up, you can't miss it. Saturn is a tough one now. It's in Aquarius, and visible fairly low in the western horizon after sunset until mid-month. By the middle of February, Saturn is going to be pretty much lost in the glow from the sun, the setting sun. Near Mercury on the 25th and near a young crescent moon on the 28th. Uranus is visible in Aries after sunset. Neptune is in Pisces, visible after sunset, but it sets soon after sunset by the mid-month. So we're going to lose Neptune by the end of February for sure. Next, please. So this is what you'll see on the 25th with Skymaster 15 by 70 binoculars, Mercury and Saturn quite close together. Next. On the 25th as well, so here's the conjunction between Mercury and Saturn, but on the 25th, you'll be able to see with the unaided eye 4 planets, so Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury. Saturn's going to be pretty dim, but if you bring binoculars to your observing session, you'll also be able to see Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. So all of the planets will be present in the night sky just after sunset on the 25th. On the 28th, very similar, except that Saturn is going to be even tougher to see, but Mercury and Saturn will be joined by a very young, I think 28-hour-old crescent moon. So that might make a nice, if you've got a really good western horizon, that would make a nice photo opportunity. Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect western horizon. Yeah. 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 So if anyone lives near the Bay of Fundy and get down to the Fundy shore, that would be a good spot. Next, please. Zodiacal light. So February, March are times in which after sunset, you can see the zodiacal light. So that's the sun reflecting off dust, sunlight reflecting off dust in the plane of the ecliptic. And a good time would be around the 14th, so Valentine's Day. It's not showing up, but zodiacal light is about here. And Venus is going to be bright right in the middle of it. So again, a nice photo opportunity. This is an image I took of zodiacal light a few years ago at 9 Mile River. So you have to get out where it's fairly dark, but you can see this pyramid coming up into the sky. So after sunset, if you have dark skies, when there's no moon present, have a look either this month or next month, and you don't need to stay up late to see this. If you wait for the fall viewing, you'll need to get up early because you have to see it before sunrise. Next one, please. Okay, winter constellations are in Explore the Universe are Auriga, Gemini, Taurus, Orion, Canis Major, and Canis Minor. You can see them all if you orient yourself between the southeast and the south. Next. And stars, winter stars are listed here: Sirius, Capella, Rigel, Procyon, Betelgeuse, Aldebaran, Pollux, and Castor, circled. So you have to identify those for Explore the Universe. Next. Deep sky object for this month. I've got a couple. Seven Sisters, the Pleiades, you can't miss it even if you're in the suburbs of Halifax and you look up, you can pick out with binoculars Pleiades. They give a nice wide field view. Messier 35 is a open star cluster here. And the challenge is, if you're looking for Messier 35, look for the smaller open star cluster next to it, NGC 2158.
Much better image.
Yes, yeah, that didn't. The NGC 2158 shows up well, but the M35 is kind of lost. Double star for this month, Explore the Universe, is this particular one, 17 Coma A and B in Coma Berenices. It's a multiple star system, and this is what it looks like in with binoculars. So stars are pretty close together in the Coma star cluster. And next, that's it for this month in the night sky. Are there any questions?
It'll be clear every night.
It doesn't look. Yeah, doesn't look good. Tonight's not bad until midnight. Then about 3-4 hours of cloud, and then it clears again before dawn. The 4th looks partly cloudy, but should be okay for seeing planets through breaks in the cloud. Other than that, certainly between now and Tuesday, it doesn't look good. And Wednesday doesn't look great for next week. So, but cross your fingers, and Jerry, don't buy another mount. Okay, thanks everyone, and see you at the March meeting. Or Tuesday, yeah, if you come to Atlantic Photo Supply.
Please hang up and try again.